Good morning. Happy Monday. It is time for just a word from, the word. Our passage this morning comes from the book of First Samuel, chapter 17, verse 54, and I'm reading from the English Standard Version. And here's what it says. And David took the head of the Philistine, speaking of Goliath, and brought it to Jerusalem. But this is what struck me this morning. But he put his Goliath's armor in his tent. Trophies of war. David was sent by his dad to go check on his brothers because they were fighting against the Philistines. Philistines, however you want to say that. Um, but they were fighting against their arch enemy. And so David carts food and seeks out his brothers, brings them the food from their dad, and says, "Hey, what's going on?" Because he hears Goliath come out. Um, I think of the old fairy tale, fee, fi, fo, fum. I smell the blood of an Englishman. Um, it was kind of that way. The giant Goliath comes out, show me a man. I defy the God of Israel. And you know the story, or at least I hope you do, that David fights Goliath, not with a sword, not with a shield, not even with armor. Even though King Saul tried to give all of that to David, David said, "No, I have not proven these in any kind of battle. But I'm going to take my trusty slingshot and going to grab me some rocks, and the scripture calls them stones, but rocks. I'm going to grab me some rocks, and I'll take care of this giant just like I've taken care of bears and lions." And David goes out and he meets Goliath. Goliath, of course, makes fun of him. I mean, you would too. If you had, major amounts of armor and you've been fighting battles since you were a young person and you're now, 40s, 50s, whatever. And you're strong and mighty and tall. And that's how Goliath saw himself, apparently. I'm big and bad to the bone. And Goliath looks at David like, who's this pipsqueak? David, with the right attitude, says, "You're coming at me with all of your experience. You're coming at me with all of your instruments of war. But I've got you one upped. I'm coming to you in the name of the Lord, the one that you have blasphemed." David slings the stone. The stone hits Goliath right in between his eyes, literally. Goliath doesn't fall down backwards, he falls down forwards, which is just fascinating. David cuts the head off of Goliath, decides that he's going to take that head to Jerusalem and show King Saul, look what I did. That was a trophy for King Saul to have as their enemies was defeated. And that's all fine and good. But it struck me this morning as I was going through First Samuel 17. And I know I've read it. I've read it tons of times. But sometimes things just pop up. The scripture says that David took Goliath's head to Jerusalem, but he took Goliath's armor and put it in his tent. Find that fascinating because David said, this is Jan's interpretation. David said, "I want to remember that this battle was not won because I was wearing armor. The name of the Lord is greater than the armor of the enemy. And David takes Goliath's armor, which weighed oodles and oodles of pounds, places it in his tent as a spoil of war, as trophies, basically, of war. What does that have to do with us? Because I've spent all this time telling the story. Here's this morning's just a word from the word. I have just not been able to get away from it. When you fight spiritual battles, and if you're walking with the Lord, you're going to fight some spiritual battles. When those battles are won, first, you didn't win them on your own strength. I leaned in intentionally. I'm going to do it again. You did not win that battle on your own strength. Hear me. You won it because the name of the Lord was lifted up and he won the battle for you. That's a trophy. But the spoils of that battle, anything that you can take away from that battle to remind you that the enemy's tactics are no match for the name of the Lord, you need to do that. How do you do that? That sounds so weird when you're talking about a spiritual battle. Here's something that I do. Might help you. If I have faced a difficult spiritual battle, the way that I remember the victory that God brought, the deliverance that God brought, I'll take my Bible or I'll take my journal, one or the other, depending on how big of a deal it is to me. And I will put a date and I will write it down. This is what happened. This was the struggle. This is how God brought victory, gave the answer, brought deliverance, whatever. Date it. Write it down. Put it somewhere where you can access it again. Because there's going to come a time when you're going to go through another struggle, when things are going to be difficult again. And you're going to need to do what David did. You're going to need to look back at those trophies from your war to remind you not how victorious you are, but how victorious God is. Those are the importance of the trophies of war. Can you think of how God won, brought you through a great struggle, maybe healed your body from a difficult disease that you just couldn't seem to get past, how God worked in your life that was miraculous. And as I'm saying these things, that my brain is just on overload thinking of what the Lord has done for me and for other people that I know. Write those things down. Remember those trophies of war so that when the next struggle comes, when the next difficulty comes, you see not your track record, but God's. And let that encourage you and give you strength for the journey. This has been just a word from the Word. God bless you. Have a beautiful day. I'm going to be preaching our first Wednesday service this Wednesday at 7:30. Would love to have you. Teaching the adult class this coming Sunday. Again, would love to have you. Come and join us. Service times and address and all of that are in the description. But God bless you. Have a beautiful day. And Lord willing, we'll see you tomorrow.